What are you doing? Why are you in my house? It's not time for a Discworld read-along video. It is time for a Discworld read-along video. It's actually a week overdue. Okay. Well, let me finish making this tea, even though I am going to have flashbacks to the last time I made tea. No! Oh, no. But let me finish making this tea and putting on some pants, and then we can get to this read-along. Sourcery is the 5th book in the Discworld series and is also the 3rd book in the Unseen University collection, making it the 3rd time we get to jump into Rincewind's head. So if you really enjoy Rincewind as a character so far, you're probably really going to enjoy him in Sourcery. He's still a lot of fun in it, even though this book does have its pitfalls, which I'm going to get into here in a second. I am TL Painter, and this is my channel where I talk about stories and perform this Discworld read-along. The Discworld read-along has been ongoing for several months, and we've been reading about one Discworld book every month, so we're slowly moving our way chronologically through the series by Terry Pratchett. I love Discworld, and I'm really enjoying this chronological read-along. Even though I've read this series several times, this is my own first chronological read-through of Discworld, so I'm pretty excited to share that experience with everybody, and to share in everyone else's experience reading through Discworld, whether you've read it before, or whether this is your first time reading it. Alright. How does this look? Decent? Other than the fact that I'm in it? I'm actually not done setting up yet. Let me just set my tea down. Just gonna put it over here, I guess. There's literally a Kia Soul doing that. I don't understand. Soccer moms are getting wild. As I've indicated a few times during this Discworld read-along, these early books, and particularly the Unseen University collection, is just not my favorite, and Sourcery is, unfortunately, not an exception to that rule. So we're gonna talk about my thoughts, then I'm gonna get to your thoughts, and then we'll finally wrap up this video and talk about what book we're reading next. My thoughts, you say? But I didn't give you my thoughts. Well, that's your own fault, because about 1 or 2 weeks before the video comes up, a discussion post goes live here on YouTube. And the discussion post is where you can give your star rating for the book that we're reading, as well as share any comments or quotes or anything else you want to have appear in the video, and I will go through those and pick out which ones I like and discard those that I find to be repugnant, and then I'll discuss them here in this video. So in the next section, after I get to my thoughts, you're going to see what everybody else happened to think about Sourcery. Let's go ahead and dive into what I thought about the book, but just to give you a quick recap, here's a summary of Sourcery. This is our first time jumping into Rincewind's head since The Light Fantastic, the direct sequel to The Color of Magic. In Sourcery, Rincewind must travel across the disc, return to Unseen University, and stop an evil spellcaster from taking over the school and eventually the world. Oh wait, no, that's Light Fantastic. No, that's Sourcery. You see where I'm going with this. Alright, in seriousness, the story of Sourcery kicks off when a new Arch-Chancellor is going to be chosen and will thus receive the powerful, magical Arch-Chancellor's hat. Now the hat senses that the person who's going to come for it may not have the best intentions for it, and so it calls out to be stolen away, and a thief named Conina. And so the hat calls out for assistance, hoping to be stolen away, and it reaches out to Conina, the daughter of Cohen the Barbarian, who we last saw in The Light Fantastic. Yeah, Conina, Cohen, barbarians, we're not really breaking any glass ceilings with these. Conina, Rincewind, and Luggage steal away with the hat and are eventually captured by pirates or marauders or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing a lot here so we can get to what I think about the book. The hat originally did want to be stolen away by Rincewind and didn't see much of a problem with it, but that's because he didn't realize that Rincewind is pretty much incapable of magic and is barely a wizard at all. While they are gone, a boy named Coin, who is a sorcerer and thus the 8th son of an 8th son, arrives at Unseen University and lays his claim. He says that he is the most powerful of all the wizards, and he proves it. He is exceptional, and he is excellent at magic, so much so that while the other wizards of Unseen University, who are significantly older than he is, are uncomfortable with the idea of him being a leader, they decide to just let it happen because they're kind of scared of him. He's pretty intimidating as a young child, and his magic is superb. Coin is poised to lead the Wizards of Unseen University to basically godhood. They are going to become the rulers of the world because, well, mundane men just aren't really equipped to do it like the wizards are. You know, these incredibly intelligent, capable, wise wizards. that we've learned so much about over the course of the Discworld. So they start conquering the world, which is a pretty big deal. Conquering the world is it's quite the undertaking, but with Coin at their sides enhancing their magic, the wizards are capable of just about anything. And so Rincewind returns to Unseen University after his capture, he takes the hat, and he aims to stop Coin once and for all. However, he can't stop Coin using magic, so he settles for the good old brick stuffed into a sock. That, I'm gonna admit, that is a pretty awesome way to take down a baddie. Coin begins to argue with his staff, which is actually his father. His father sealed himself away in the staff so that death couldn't claim his soul, and his father has since been overbearing and guiding his son and making him do all of these things that he thinks his son should be able to do. He's kind of the reason for all of this meth.
You want to cook crystal meth?
He's kind of the reason for all of this mess, and eventually Coin breaks the staff. I might be missing that one. I got sick after I read this book. I'm pretty sure Coin breaks the staff, but correct me if I'm wrong on that one. Coin breaks the staff and that ends the battle. That's the end of Sourcery. Except for one important detail, because Rincewind gets sealed away in another dimension as part of this, and he can't come back. So let's talk about what I think about Sourcery. As you may have already guessed, I have one glaring issue with Sourcery, and that's that it's the light fantastic. It's just the light fantastic with a little bit less adventure to it, but better writing and more well thought out characters. I enjoy the individual scenes of Sourcery more than I enjoy the individual scenes of the light fantastic, and I found the conclusion to be a lot more interesting than I did in the light fantastic. But as I was reading it, especially having just read light fantastic just a few months ago, I just kept seeing all these similarities between it, and this is something that I hadn't noticed before. As I've said, Unseen University isn't a collection that I've revisited more than a couple of times, and I don't think I've ever read it in chronological order. So this is my first time chronologically reading it. So this is also my first time noticing that this is basically just the light fantastic again with extra steps, or possibly with fewer steps. I'm not really sure. I'd have to reread light fantastic, but I'm pretty sure that this is basically just Rincewind going to a place and then going back to the place he was, as opposed to traveling across the disc. However, I do have to admit, and in all honesty, that Sourcery tells the story of the light fantastic better. All around, and all things considered, Sourcery is a better book than Sourcery. Sourcery is a better book than The Light Fantastic. But collectively, they really do feel like the same book. Now, no one else seemed to think this exact same thing. I didn't get any validation on this in the comments on the discussion post, but if you also felt this way reading this one, then let me know. I am refusing to set this mug down because I know I'm gonna break it just like I did the last one, and I only have 3 left. I need my mugs. Now, Sourcery, much like The Light Fantastic, its predecessor, right? That's the word, predecessor. I'm still getting over being sick, you're gonna have to forgive my vocabulary. Sourcery, much like its predecessor, suffers from being a lot of really well-written scenes that are only kind of loosely connected. There's some really cool stuff in here. I mean, we have pirates, and if you've watched this channel for any length of time, you know that I really like pirates, especially zombie pirates. We didn't get those, but I dig pirates. And so to have that in this book, and for me to just think that was a really awesome scene, but then come out of finishing the book thinking, but did that scene really have to be there? And did the story even really have to be there? What did I gain from this that I didn't gain from The Light Fantastic? It's just a little disappointing to see pirates used now, but just not in the way that I would have liked to see. Because of all of this, it's kind of tough for me to give a rating to Sourcery, because my first instinct is to just give it 3 stars, because while it is technically better than The Light Fantastic, it's also just The Light Fantastic all over again, and I just read The Light Fantastic 2 books ago. 2 books ago. On top of that, this was the follow-up to Mort, which I absolutely loved. It was an awesome book. The story was cohesive, the plot was excellent, it was all really well written, and then to follow it up with Sourcery was just a little disappointing. So while if I analyze it technically, this should be receiving a better rating than The Light Fantastic, because I just read The Light Fantastic, I have to rate it a little bit lower. So while, yeah, maybe it deserves to be better than Light Fantastic, I'm gonna end up giving Sourcery 3 stars just because it just felt like reading The Light Fantastic all over again. And especially compared to Mort, this isn't really an improvement. In these early Discworld books, we are really seeing the highs and lows of the story until we get to the really good stuff, which Guards is just around the corner, so I'm really stoked to get to that. Mort was excellent, and I think that most people agreed with that. And then Sourcery was just a dip down, and based on the star ratings people gave, most people agreed with that as well, which is unfortunate. You'd think that it would just continue to improve and improve, but Sourcery is kind of 2 steps back. I do want to say though that I think I quote Sourcery more than I quote any other Discworld book other than maybe Hogfather. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize that some of my favorite Discworld quotes came from the first few pages of Sourcery. One of my favorites is when Death is asked what gives life meaning, and Death's answer is just cats. That's a pretty good answer. The whole opening scene there with Death was absolutely fantastic. As you can see, I just love Death as a character. He is awesomely written, he's entertaining, and he always makes the page a little bit brighter, even though he is literally the characterization of death, something that we are all meant to fear, which is a whole other thing that I could go into. I would love to make a video at some point about how Terry Pratchett anthropomorphizes death and also makes us love death, and he does a fantastic job of that. So Sourcery, despite how much I love the opening pages and how much I love Death and how much of an improvement it is over Light Fantastic, I still just gotta give it 3 stars. But now let's go ahead and get to your thoughts on Sourcery. This is personally my favorite part of any read-along video and any read-along discussion, is getting to hear the thoughts of everybody else who is participating in this read-along. I really appreciate you whether you are going in and giving it a star rating and walking away, or if you're giving it a star rating and then leaving a comment with your insights and thoughts. All of that means a lot to me, and especially on this post, I got some really great insights from folks that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. But first, let's look at the star rating. 3 stars. That is the overwhelming average, with a couple of people giving it 5 and some giving it 4 stars. Once again, this is just an average Discworld book. It's entertaining to read, there are some great scenes in it, but overall, when you look at the cohesive whole, it just wasn't great, especially compared to Mort. Now, if you did give this book 5 stars and you genuinely did love it that much, awesome. I'm glad for that. I do think it's a good book. I think I probably would have rated it much higher myself if I hadn't read the previous Unseen University books as part of this read-along. I do seem to remember enjoying Sourcery a lot more in my previous read-throughs than I did on this one, so I think reading it chronologically did kind of affect the way that I enjoyed the book this time around. So I'm giving it 3 stars now, but I think if I read it in any other order, or if it were the first book in Discworld that I'd read, I'd probably love it a lot more. So if you really enjoyed this one and you gave it 5 stars, more power to you. Now we're gonna go ahead and dive into the comments that I received on the discussion post. And like I said, I got some really good ones. We're gonna go to the first comment, which comes from Wollervine. I know it's Wolverine, but just misspelled, and that drove me crazy trying to both type it in my notes and also saying it just now. As you can see, I'm like tearing up. Wollervine says, Wollervine. Gosh, man, why? Some awesome moments in an unremarkable book. Excellently said, sums it up perfectly. There are a lot of really cool scenes in this, some great character moments, some awesome lines of dialogue. Overall, there's so many cool things in this book. I loved even just the way that Rincewind took out the baddie with a brick and a sock, even though technically the way the baddie was taken out was an argument between son and father. Really awesome way to end a book, and just so many cool things. I mean, we've got pirates in this book, and I love pirates, but overall, the book just isn't that remarkable. The next comment comes from Jeremy Holka. I need to blow my nose really badly. God, I hate being sick. The next comment comes from Jeremy Holka. Jeremy says, if you go into it remembering that Rincewind books are just a road trip, then it's fun. I definitely agree with that. If you look at it in that perspective, if you look at each of the Rincewind books, including Color of Magic, as just a road trip with some interesting companions like Two Flower and Konina and luggage, then it's a lot more fun than it otherwise would be. It's a road trip. You're going along with your friends and you're hanging out and you're, I guess, just seeing where the road or the seas take you. And maybe that will improve your enjoyment of the book, perhaps. Now, this next comment is my favorite that I think I've received from any of the discussion posts because it provides some really excellent insight into this that definitely improved my respect and appreciation for the book, even if it didn't make me enjoy it more overall. Now, I'm gonna read this comment in its entirety, other than a couple of things that I will be omitting because they're somewhat major spoilers for people who have not yet read the books in their entirety. And so if you haven't yet read all of Discworld, don't worry, I'm gonna nix a couple of things that I think might be a little bit spoilery. Now, this comment comes from Evil DM Mark III, and if Evil DM is a reference to you being a TTRPG game master who is evil, I appreciate and respect that because same here. Mark III says, I keep forgetting how early this book is, considering how it marks the end of the early depiction of Unseen University. The next time we see the place, it will have appointed a new Arch-Chancellor, and things will not be the same ever again. After the climax of this novel, we have the events of Eric, and then it's about 10 books before we see him again. It's almost as if this book was originally intended as a farewell. It would certainly have been a fitting one. The coward of 1,000 retreating steps first steps up to fight the inevitable, and then is about to help possibly the one person more afraid than himself, the abused boy that is Coin. It is also the penultimate appearance, unless I'm very much mistaken, of the Things, before their last hurrah in moving pictures. These, among many other things, are the reasons I feel that Sourcery feels like the capstone to early Discworld. From here, we hit the period where the story starts to feel less like parodies of other works and more like stories in their own setting that occasionally parodies other fiction. It's just a pity that despite how significant it is less a good story than it is 24 great scenes and a few memorable characters in a trench coat. And that summary at the end there, so I had just put everything away, sat down and started porting all of the video over when I realized that the last section of the video was corrupted. So here I am trying to recapture the magic, because you won't believe just how incredibly smooth talking I was in the last few minutes of that video. It was probably some of my best work, and I'm sorry that you'll never get to see it, but if it makes you feel any better, neither will I. I think it cut off right about the point where I'd finished reading Mark III's comment, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in right there. Now, the key thing that I want to take away from Mark's comment is that Sourcery is a capstone to early Discworld. It is the end of early Discworld, and it's after this that we begin to see things change and begin to see Discworld come into its own. It is no longer just a parody of other worlds, but is a story setting in and of itself. We are about to start seeing fewer books along the lines of Color of Magic and more books along the lines of Mort. I'm really excited for that age of Discworld. Now, in my own recollections, I thought this started with Guards, but Mark seems to indicate that it begins with Weird Sisters. Truthfully, I don't remember Weird Sisters all that well, but we're gonna read that one next. And that's gonna bring me to the next part, which is what's next for our Discworld read-along. And next is Weird Sisters. This is another book in the Witches collection. We already read Equal Rights, which is the first book in the Witches collection, so I'm really excited to get into this one. Now, I was already excited to get to this book because, as I said, I just don't recall much about it. It's been a while since I've read this one, but having Mark point out that this may well be the beginning of the more modern Discworld books that I love makes me really excited to get into this one and look at it from that perspective. Do I feel like this is really the beginning of modern Discworld as opposed to Guards, which is the one that I've always upheld as the first really great Discworld book? I don't know, and I'm looking forward to finding out. So Weird Sisters is the next book that we're going to read. I'm going to be putting the discussion post for Weird Sisters up on April 26th. That means that you have to have the book read by April 26th in order to participate in the discussion before the video goes up. So go ahead and grab a copy of this. Now, if you don't already have a copy of Weird Sisters, you can grab one through the link in the description below. And if you do so, I'll get a couple of cents off that sale, which help keep me sane and keep the lights on, and also replace all of the mugs that I keep breaking as part of this this series that I'm doing. I don't mean to break mugs, it just happens. They're very expensive. Anyway, April 26th, that's when you need to have Weird Sisters read. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out this video, and thank you for participating in this read-along, whether you're participating right now live, or whether you are somebody who is participating in the future where I'm very old and gray. This is probably roughly next year. Yeah. Anyway, if you want to see another video from me, you can do so by clicking up here. And until next time, bye.